Welcome everyone to NiCHE Conversations. I'm Jessica DeWitt. I'm one of the editors here at the network in Canadian History and Environment. And today I am joined by another one of our editors, Caroline Evans Abbott.
Hi.
And yeah, you want to introduce yourself?
I'd love to. I am Caroline. I'm one of the editors at NiCHE. I'm coming upon my second term, and I've had a great year. It's been a lot of learning and a lot of fun. I am an independent scholar, and I love, in this particular vein, to look at folklore and environmental history and the environmental humanities, as well as non-humanity frameworks, animal histories, things like that.
Awesome.
So I have a cat here, so if she jumps up, we have a Halloween appearance from Beep as well.
Very good. We may have a booth appearance at some point as well, so we'll see.
I'll never complain about that.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about the first series that you've edited for us by yourself, which is Ghost Light, Folkloric Non-Humanity on the Environmental Stage. And it's so great so far, so we're going to be talking about that. And I wanted to start off with a question that I personally have been in the room for several different groups, and everyone has different ideas, and no one can agree, even folklore professionals. So I wanted to start with how do you define folklore personally?
I think that we may have a blooper reel from this with the feathers. I I learned very quickly that question is a loaded question in the folklore realm. And it's funny, I have learned so much editing this series, which is a big part of why I wanted to do it, because I wanted it to be this way of getting my feet wet in what other people thought. So I came to folklore study through truly environmental historians and animal historians who would use the frameworks, but they intentionally would sort of sometimes either skirt completely around the issue so that they didn't have to define it, yes, or they would borrow pieces of it, which is great and valid and produces some wonderful scholarship. So I suppose, and you're going to hate me for this, but the first thing I thought when I thought of this question in general was your words, which is the stories society tells, because it's, I think, often best to define things broadly when there's a difficult or an intricate concept, especially one that intersects so many different areas of culture across humanity and systems of global dominance. So I always liked that phrasing of yours. And I believe that's from your park mythology theory, which I quote endlessly, but yeah. The other folklorists I have looked at who are more sort of in the traditional vein define things in very strict terms. And you know me as I wear a bug costume on Instagram Live, my editor-in-chief, and I'm not quite so rigid. So I like to think of it more broadly and less prescriptively. I think that's opens a lot of doors for a lot of fun things. I suppose that's not a very good answer, but it's definitely been a learning experience.
No, I really appreciate that. In the past, I was editor of Folklore Magazine.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm on the board of the Saskatchewan History and Folklore Society. So this is definitely a question that we deal with a lot. And we're a public history organization. And, most of our readers and our members are members of the public. So when you're thinking of these prescriptive definitions of these types of things like folklore, those things don't resonate with the public. So when you have these broader things, I think they're much more useful and much more, they create connectivity between us much more easily, instead of taking the academic hammer and this is what this is, and because no one else cares, they just people like stories, and that's what people think of when we think of folklore. I agree. So yeah, cool.
And it evolves through time as well. So the definition travels along with humans wherever they are, and that's such a varied thing, human population. So I feel like stuffing it into one box is often sort of difficult because you end up really cornering in on your bias of which culture's folklore are you defining here, because it's quite different for everybody. I'm rambling a little bit.
No, that's an excellent, that's excellent point. Even, in Canada where I work, Indigenous folklore and settler folklore are often very different things. But they often come together as well, right? Um, and we've got a booth. We've got a booth.
Juicy!
Two cat sightings so far.
Good stuff. We'll see if we get any more.
The audience wants us to ramble on, so we're good to go.
Good.
So I thought we would talk next about Ghostlight specifically, and what was your inspiration for this series?
Gosh, so this actually sort of parallels the folklore definition that we were talking about, in that I found that as it was also difficult to define folklore into a single category or to have one definition that made everybody happy and allowed everybody to talk about it. Non-humanity frameworks are very, very similar in that there are all these discussions of what is human, what is other than human, where do those lines fall, and what do we do with them?
Mm-hmm.
So there was this parallel that you have a lot of folklorists, or at least many of the ones that I have engaged with so far and read so far, saying, this is what I think folklore is, and this is how I'm going to work with it. And because there was that similarity, and I think that's true of a lot of academic ideas, but they were so similarly worked with that it made it a really cool vehicle as I'm, reading one work by Donna Haraway and I'm reading another by Coleman or something, and I'm thinking, there's a lot to work with here.
Yeah.
But I guess the more pure inspirations probably just that there are all these cool stories that I kept coming across, both in local areas and other homes that I've known, that have always made me think, well, who's telling the version of the story that involves the non-human or the other than human being in this? What would we learn about the story? How could we retell it if we looked at it differently, and if we looked at it through the big bad wolf or similar instead of the human? And that's obviously been done quite a bit in art and culture, but I really wanted to see it done in this particular vein, running parallels. And I consider myself fully a curator. I think somebody else said that on here recently in a NiCHE conversation, and it really resonated, because that's how I feel. I have learned so much from these folks. They are all bright and wonderful, and I have been very lucky to see what it means to them. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the general outline, but I could ramble for a while about that one too.
Cool. Yeah, I agree. I'm definitely a curator as well. Obviously, it's like what I do all day. I haven't even been writing my own stuff lately.
I feel that very, very powerfully. Last night I was rushing to finish something, but
yeah, I love helping other people share their knowledge and their ideas, and so when I do these series as well, I just find it very rewarding, and so interesting to see the different ideas and that are submitted and come together, and yeah, it's so cool.
It is.
Which kind of brings us, it's a good segue for me, an accidental segue, to our last question today, which is to talk about the content of Ghostlight. And I wonder if you could just kind of talk about some of the stories that people will find in this series.
Gosh, I have to be so careful because I love all of them so incredibly much. I think that as a broad brush, you will find a lot of great seasonally appropriate work for right now. So if you're looking for something to do this Halloween, I think that curling up with that little corner of NiCHE would be great. But so many of these topics engaged hierarchy in the retelling of these stories, which is really what I wanted to see. And so everybody does it, but everybody does it differently. And it wasn't a prescribed thing, and it was something that came up quite naturally in many different veins. We have the Orcadian folklore from Walter Trail Dennison, which Jonathan wrote, and we have Sudassel's piece about the parable of Bon Bibi, and we have just today Amanda Wells's as well, which is about colonial entanglements in Australian river valley setting. So there are so many that look at the line between what we consider to be human and what we consider to be non-human, and how those beings and figures factor into the stories that we tell and what they
Mhm.
mean in those contexts. So I suppose what you're going to be looking at most is this kind of questioning of those lines and the boundaries between where we put the humans and the non-humans in those stories and what they mean, what they represent. And I have just found it so incredibly fascinating and rewarding. Every single person has been incredible, and I have had the best time. So I will continue to gush if you let me. But I want to also, I just want to say thank you so much to, if any of the contributors are tuning in. I have had the best time working with you, and I hope that you come back again and again because I have learned so much. Um, you will find a wealth of information from all of them. It's been a lot of fun.
Yay. Caroline is such a good, conscientious editor. Um,
Thanks.
and yeah, I think this series also is just the breadth of what we're covering and the variety, like the geographic variety, etc., is just so cool. And it's something that we've been getting more and more in the last couple of years with our niche series. We're really busting out of the North
We
American,
really are.
yeah, theme, and like we've got people writing for us from all over the world, and it's really amazing. And I think it's a really beautiful thing, and I'm glad that Ghostlight has been able to facilitate that.
It's been a lot
And
of fun
yeah,
and very expansive. I think we had one, I might be misremembering, but I believe that we have had one topic from North America. No, two. I'm sorry, two. We've had two topics from North America, one on Sasquatch and one on a so-called invasive, which is a beautiful recipe as well, which is very
mm-hmm.
exciting.
Great.
And then I think my introduction and possibly my conclusion will focus a little bit more on the Connecticutian vampiric sort of thing. But
Yeah.
everybody has been coming from everywhere, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just neat to see how much it is similar
Yeah.
wherever you go. It's
Mm-hmm.
wild and
Very
really
cool.
cool.
Yeah. And you're accepting submissions on a rolling basis for this
I
as well?
think that's it. Yeah, I think that's the direction I had hoped to go. I think there are so many, there were so many wonderful submissions to this, and we were working with a limited number of dates, so there were a couple that didn't quite end up where they would have been in the series. So I would
Mm-hmm.
love to keep getting submissions for this. I would love to keep this conversation going. I started a little map. Because you know I love my little maps. So
Yeah.
I have started a little one that has all of these little pings where the stories are lighting up. And it's already so cool to see it spread beyond the borders that we would have worked with, I think, at NiCHE maybe 3 years ago even. And
Mm-hmm.
it is quite expansive. So I hope that if anybody's watching and thinks, "Oh shoot, I wish I had jumped on that bandwagon," well, you still can. So as long as you don't mind your editor being a little bit on the silly side, I am open to the serious folklorists as well. But I hope that we get more submissions to it because there are so many great stories. Um, so touch wood, I guess.
um, yeah, that's cool. I hope more people write for it. I think it's a great topic, one that's underrepresented on our site and elsewhere as well. And yeah, I want to thank you for bringing it together and joining me today. It's always a pleasure, Carolyn.
It was absolutely my pleasure, and I have to thank you and Andrew because you have offered. Those are our two editors in chief. Andrew, I think, is Instagramless, but Jessica
Yes.
certainly is not. So I thank both of you because you've taught me so much, and this experience has been such a learning experience. Thank you to the contributors who've been patient with me and sweet and helpful and kind because I learned a lot in a very quick pace, and I couldn't have done it without everybody's help. So thank you, thank Andrew, and I thank them.
Yes. Yay.
If you see the cat lunge, it's because she's been over here in the window just watching these and ready to go. So I'm actually quite thankful that, you know, we didn't have my chair fly back and smack into the wall.
That would have been good too, though. It was very entertaining.
Definitely probably a first. And a happy Halloween to everybody who celebrates
Yeah,
or is doing the this trick or treating.
the thing. Yeah, I gotta get my baby in her costume later. I'm usually not a Halloween person, but you know, when you have a wee one, you gotta get into the spirit. So
Well, I saw her in a pumpkin the other day, and
yeah,
that alone was so cute. I hope you post lots of pictures because I will harass you for them.
I shall. I shall. Everyone, if you want to see my baby in a pumpkin, head over to my personal. Um,
Where Tamsin's already a celebrity among the niche community, I think.
yes, yes. Okay, well, it was great to see you, Caroline.
It's so good to see
And
you.
yeah, I'm sure we'll talk again, maybe next year.
It's a date. You know I'll make time for this over almost anything else. So I am so happy we got to do this. Thank you for having me on, and look forward to another fabulous year. I can't wait.
Yay! Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.